Welcome, everybody, to the official episode 1 of Bored All the Time. Scott, we're here. We're doing it again.
I know we are. It's official. It's weird.
Hey, thank you guys for coming along with us on this. Hopefully you were able to check out our episode 0 where we just kind of talked about who we are. We'll give you a quick little snap of that again. And then additionally, we had our top 10s as of the moment when we recorded them. Just fun stuff to put out there. Scott, I think we have some interesting segments built up.
Oh, yeah.
I like the way we've designed this.
I mean, we wanted to make sure that every time that you come into an episode, that there's going to be similar things that happen at the same time in the podcast, and then all of a sudden we hit you with something new and different.
One of the segments, and we're going to be talking about it soon enough, we're trying to do things that maybe we haven't seen before, heard before, or just kind of take a twist on it. I know there are a few segments that we have planned in the future that we have gotten permission from other content creators to be able to use just because we like the ideas. And we'll mention those when they come up.
Hey, Mark, let's get started with this. What's been on your table?
I have been challenged by some people on a couple Discord servers to do a 10 by 10 solo challenge. And I've really enjoyed digging into that because I have a lot of games and a lot of the time I don't get to revisit something repeatedly. And so this has given me the excuse of, hey, I'm really going to dig in, play something a lot. I have played an enormous amount of Nemesis recently, the original one, not Lockdown. And I've used every single bit of expansion content for it, all the promo content, everything else, to the point where I think I'm actually going to be releasing just a little standalone episode. And we've talked about developing this little side series, just talking about everything there is about it. Nemesis, I mentioned it in my top 10. It's in my top 10 games. Even after playing it 10 times in about 10 days, it's still in that top 10. It's a phenomenal game. Played a lot of Tapestry because Tapestry is so good. It is also one of the games I have easily had the biggest 180 on. I really disliked it the first couple times I played it. I couldn't figure out who the game was for. I couldn't justify a lot of stuff. And after working Gen Con a couple of years ago and talking to a couple of guys on the team who were over the moon about it, I'm like, okay, clearly I need to give it another chance. And I did so, and I'm very happy I did so because now I've played it just an almost offensive amount because I really, really enjoy everything the game provides. We may come up against that at some point in the future of hard to recommend games because Tapestry to me is a hard to recommend game because of its price point more than anything else.
Yeah, it's not a cheap game.
Especially because you kind of need the expansions.
Yes, having played Tapestry in its first stage and then since the expansions have come out, I completely agree. Expansions make the game better.
The new revised Civ pack has come out for it, and it's essentially Tapestry 2.0. It changes so many of the civilizations in such strong ways that it's essentially a different game now, and it's one that I like even more than I did before. Those are the major things on my table. Other things have popped up here and there, and I certainly played plenty on Board Game Arena. If you want to play a game of Ark Nova against me, let me know, because I play that obsessively. But yeah, I think those are really the ones that are top of mind right now. What about you?
Big one with one of my groups that when I'm not hanging out with you, we are playing lots of Frosthaven, which is the sequel to Gloomhaven. Really enjoyed that. We get into it. We're currently in a rut. I have a fantastic character that we get behind it. We make it a little bit grander than it actually is because it's a tactical game. Not everybody enjoys that style of game.
Gloomhaven taught me that I don't like dungeon crawlers.
Yeah.
Which is really weird based on the video games I play, but just don't like them on tabletop.
And that is completely valid. We've been having a blast. We've been having this one storyline where, like, we know we need to get this so we can unlock this one other thing because we want to progress because you have multiple storylines that you're kind of going along on. And we're like, okay, if we pass this one section, we'll get to do this one thing and we can continue on with this other stuff that gives us more things. And we progressed farther this time, but still lost. If you have a friend that owns it, play with them because it's an expensive game.
People like Jaws of the Lion.
Yeah.
Again,
yeah.
I have not tried Jaws of the Lion. Does Frosthaven do anything to make people that don't like Gloomhaven, would they like Frosthaven more?
There are some definite parallels between the Gloomhaven and the Frosthaven series. I think Frosthaven has done well in its division from Gloomhaven. You're now building a city instead of just progressing your character. So it's you have a character, you have a goal.
Well, Gloomhaven had that.
Right.
With building Gloomhaven itself.
Well, but you really weren't building Gloomhaven.
Okay.
You were expanding the map and expanding the areas.
Okay.
And when you got done with your goal in Gloomhaven, you unlocked a new character. That does not happen in Frosthaven. In Frosthaven, you are rebuilding the town of Frosthaven, and so when you complete your goal, you get an envelope, and in that envelope is a new building.
Interesting. Okay.
Through story play, And what you choose to upgrade within the city, that is how you unlock characters now.
Okay.
So, like, you start with 6, and those 6 then gain more. The other nice part is that you're no longer, I have this character, this is my character, you can't touch my character. Now it's a group effort. So now it's a team of 6, and it's like, this person worked, but I don't think they're going to work in this scenario. I'm going to switch them out with this one, and you may played that one the last time and decide not to play with it this time.
So it has that pandemic legacy.
It has
feel.
that pandemic
Okay.
legacy feel where you're just sitting there, you're opting and switching out. The other nice thing is that just because a character retires doesn't mean you can't bring it back. You bring it back in the lower state, so it's like a new one of this character, but it's not then out. So yeah, so we've unlocked, I want to say another 6 characters. So we actually have 12 to choose from. There are ones that we have literally claimed as ours. We're like, this is the one I really just want to really dive into, and that's the current character that I'm playing. But then the rest of them were all like, this character's not going to work. And so we swap out.
Our topic of the week this week, we were thinking about all variety of things, and we realized, first episode, let's let people get a little bit more of an insight into us as gamers. I had made a topic suggestion of, hey, what do you do when you trade games? And that led to this particular conversation. So we were talking about, like, how do you manage your collection? Do you trade stuff? Do you buy stuff? How do you choose what you add to your collection? That type of thing. You are sitting over there just having a wild time. So why don't you kick the conversation off, and we'll go from there.
Well, you sit there and you say, how do you buy stuff? How do you do your collection? How do you trade stuff? What is this trade thing you speak of? I'm one of those when I'm looking at purchasing a game, because one, it is not cheap. Your minimum game is going to cost you probably anywhere between $20 to $25. Most now, you're looking at $40, $50, $70.
70 is becoming an annoyingly common price point.
Yeah. Thankfully, I feel like those price points we're definitely getting what we're paying for. Generally speaking. But yeah, I don't do a lot of the trading because I know you do. And you were like, hey, you have this game. I know we don't play it that often. I've got this list of games that I could trade. Can we trade? And I looked at that list and went, I don't really trade that often. I've stated it I believe I stated it in our 0. I'm a theme queen. So it has to have a theming that really speaks to me. As we get on and we start talking about our lists and stuff like that, you guys will see a definite repetition in a lot of stuff. I'm also a person who likes to complete a set. So like if it has a bunch of expansions, I'm typically going to pick every single one of them up, even if it's a game that I don't always play a ton. And also, I just have favorite companies, but I'm still I very much scrutinize those companies. Like, I'm looking at this going, is this going to fulfill my gaming needs, as long as also I feel it's a great representation of the company, especially when I'm doing Kickstarter.
I brought the conversation up because I got a game back, because I do cull pretty frequently. I don't think I'm as aggressive as Max from Table Knots of the always be culling mentality, but I try and keep a target number of games in my library that I try to keep a variety of things for a variety of groups. There's certainly the ones that I love that I don't even care if they don't get tabled that often. If I have the opportunity, I'm going to take the opportunity.
Yeah.
Twilight Imperium 4, reasonably, I shouldn't own it. I play it once a year, but I get to play it once a year, and that's awesome.
I mean, we make it an event. I mean,
do.
it's a thing.
It's such a good thing, too.
Yeah.
But when I look at it, if I have a game that I haven't played in a while, or I see like, oh, there's an overlap of mechanisms, which one do I like more? I will get rid of games. I really like Star Realms. And then I played Shards of Infinity, and I'm like, oh, Shards of Infinity just flat out replaced Star Realms. So I believe I traded that one away. I will trade more than anything else. I have sold games, I've given games away to friends, I have donated them to local cons and libraries. My collection certainly has its permanency about it. There's plenty of what's there that has been there for a long time. I would say a good 30 to 40% of my collection is in some rotatable state at any given time. Like I said, my target number right now, I want it to be 150. It's around 180, and I'm pretty good at holding to that 180 number.
I can't give you a number of how many games I have.
One of the reasons we wanted to talk about this is just showing how different our approach is and how both are completely valid. Like I know people that they buy a game and it's just permanently there and it may never really shrink, which that's the part that just like,
I'm not gonna buy a game if I'm not gonna play it.
I keep a very strict rating system, and I match to the BGG guidelines. And I don't bother doing any kind of half points or quarter points. I just use it as a 10-point scale. And when I look at my collection, to stay, you have to be minimum 7. If you're rated as a 7, there's still a good chance that you're going to be part of that rotating crowd. There are a few games I own that I rate 4s and 5s, but those are mostly for nostalgic reasons, like Mega Man the board game, the one from Jasco, that is a complete disaster of a game. Mega Man is in my blood.
It's Mega Man. I will have a Mega Man tattoo at some point.
Yeah, I'm honestly surprised I don't yet. And, I spent an enormous amount of time because I learned about the game far after its Kickstarter. I got my copy on clearance, and then I went and I tracked down everything for it. Got all the expansions, got all the miniatures, had to track down the Yellow Devil. There are a few things in my collection like that, which they're not good games, but I have some kind of attachment to them. But on the whole, to be considered like part of the permanent collection, pretty much have to rate you an 8. Most of these types of games have knocked other games out of my collection, and they're the reason I want to play them.
The biggest reason why we're talking about this is because we want to foster those ideas for you guys that are happy to be listening, is to look at your collection and figure out why it is in your collection, why does it stay in your collection, figure out a way to get in contact with us, and tell us how you keep your guys' collections. That'd be great.
Yeah. That's what we were trying to cover. If you have thoughts, please chime in. You can reach us at boardallthetimegaming@gmail.com right now. We're going to be doing some more stuff later on. But yeah, we would love to hear your responses and talk about those in the future. Any last thoughts?
Get out there, try games. There's people, like if you have a game that you don't like, there's going to be someone that's out there that would be happy to take it off your hands.
And that's where trading is great. The segment that we've cooked up, if other people have done this, please tell us. I would love to hear other people's approaches to this. We're calling it, Why Did I Play That? One of the things that is really phenomenal about this hobby is there's so many different types of games. There are many types of games even within a specific genre that you might not like certain roll and writes, but maybe you like flip and writes. Maybe you like things that just make no sense to you. But we all certainly have our prejudices against certain games. Like I said earlier, I'm not a big fan of Gloomhaven. But there is a joy to be found in playing things that you wouldn't otherwise go out of your way to do so, to either reinforce that, yeah, I know this is something I like, or like when I play Planet Unknown, I'm not a big fan of polyomino games. I'm just not. Boy, I'm obsessed with Planet Unknown.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
And I had the opportunity and I just took the chance to play it, went way out of my comfort zone with it, came away with a game I love.
Yep.
So the point of why did I play that is maybe you'll find a game you love, or maybe you won't.
I am the first, quote unquote, I hate to say that like this, victim of the why did we play. Because it's one of those that I'm not going to give a positive review of this game.
No, you are not. No, you are not. Spoiler alert, he does not like it.
Oh my God. And I will say, I am not one to sit there and like thrash on a game, but.
So let's get into it.
Yeah, let's get into it.
The way this is going to work is whoever's game it is going to give the rundown of what the game actually plays and its ideas, and then the other person will just respond. The game that I put in front of Scott was Endless Winter Paleo Americans. Endless Winter is a game that, frankly, I don't honestly know why I like it as much as I do. I made the joke that it was a stew of mechanisms, and Scott looked at me and said, no, it's a full-out borscht. It has area control, it has set collection, it has worker placement and tableau development. It is too many things in a box. Like, straightforward, it is too many things in a box. When Lost Ruins of Arnak and Dune Imperium were coming out, Endless Winter was being compared because, it's deck building plus worker placement. It does not belong in that conversation because there's so many other things. Now, I have not played a lot of the expansions. I never want to play the cave painting one because that just throws in roll and write stuff, which makes no sense. This game shouldn't have dry erase boards. It is from Fantasia Games, who are known for stellar productions, as well as Stan Kordomsky, the designer. He is pretty divisive. You either really love his games, you really hate his games, and I generally don't like his games very much for a variety of reasons. I certainly understand why people like them. That's just not generally the way my brain works. Endless Winter is just a whole mess of stuff. And for me, when I sit there and I look at this game, I'm like, why do I like this? It is almost inexpressible for me because I have such a good time with this game every single time. It is too long to set up. It is too long to tear down. It's kind of a pain in the butt to teach. The solo mode takes forever to set up. But what I get out of the game is just so fulfilling that I am willing to do all of that with this game. It also has one of the best tray systems in a box. Even the retail version, which is what I've got. Super easy to store. Scott, you were staring at this box like it owes you money and stab your cat.
So I will start with what I do like about the game. I do feel that components are very, very important when you're dealing with a game, especially you are going to spend money. You want to make sure that the components are well made, that they're going to stand the test of time, that you can play them several times over so that there's not a lot of wear and tear, especially if you do play it. If you do like it that much, you want to make sure that those components are really, really good, that I don't need to go out and buy sleeves, for my cards. You don't want any of that stuff. So the components are great. The look, the theme doesn't bother me. Yep. It's because you're dealing with Neanderthals here, but you're dealing with 10,000 BCE.
I do feel, and I think this is something that we divide on, I feel like all of the mechanisms that are there are actually thematic to the point where it is helpful to be able to teach the game because, you're trying to get food sources. So, yes, I think that is a strength.
I think with all the mechanics that are in this game, and the way they have them laid out and how their use is perfect. Makes sense with the theming. So I have no issues with the theming because I am the theme queen. I think it's perfect. That being said,
it's a short list of things you like.
That is a short things of the things I like. I'm not a person for area control, but those other mechanics I don't mind. The problem is I don't think they're all done. I don't think they're done well. You can't focus on anything because there's way too many things, because if you don't do everything, you're going to fall behind in some aspect, and it can drastically change your game. Because when we played, I did on one thing, and you were able to hit a little bit of everything. I don't like where I feel like I have to do absolutely everything to actually get anything. Because you miss one part, you're going to get boned.
This is a game that the person who has the experience will likely do better.
Yes.
And there's an argument. I've made that similar argument about games like Agricola. And Carlo from All You Can Board, obsessed with Agricola, and he did thankfully kind of square me off on that of just because you are losing points for not doing everything in Agricola, generally speaking, the points being lost are negligible versus what you're gaining elsewhere. The reason I bring that up is I don't think that's the case.
That's not the case with this game. Yeah, you can't sit and be like, I'm just going to do set collection, which is what I did a little more often than the other things.
Yep, because you were doing it with the animals.
Yeah, I was doing it with the animals. And I was doing it very well. I beat you handedly in set collection.
Category, yeah.
And kept up on a couple spots, but like one spot I was deficient in, and it was enough. That's a problem. That's a balance issue. It should be negligible, and it's really not. I do not feel that, there's one too many type of things. And then you sit there telling me that there's cave paintings, which means it's a rolling right or flipping right.
And you can add river boats and all the expansions added way too much.
And I'm just like, make what you've got better first, then, give me more.
And I think that's a fair critique because while each segment is thematically tied, you can see the stitches in the design.
Yes, I can see how poorly sewn the hem is. Because the race feature, that's cool, but I'm doing that race feature as I'm building a tableau, as I'm building my deck, as I'm trying to do area control, as I'm trying to do set collection. And the whole thing is it's too easy for one person to go into a spot faster than the other person. I've had it where, you took this action, okay, fine, I can do it the next action. If I don't take that action in that turn, you could literally be host.
Yeah.
So, yeah. This is like Campbell's soup clam chowder. There's just a lot of stuff to it. I'm not a fan.
It is pretty game, at least.
It's very pretty.
The Micho looks great. His art looks great.
Unfortunately, area control is always where I'm gonna struggle. Just never been a fan.
It's a real bummer because I love it.
I know.
And boy, I can't get you to play some of my favorite games.
But you know what? I like my roll and writes. I also like my pentomino games. Those are where you don't like them. But I cannot fault how well the theming is. The fact that everything that they do have in here, it makes sense with the theme. Mm-hmm. And I feel that what you paid for it, you've really got your money's worth. And it was done very, very well. So as
a retail box,
it's a great retail box.
You do not need all the Kickstarter stuff.
No.
You do not need all the acrylics. You don't need all the expansion stuff. The only expansion that I would say, check it out, is the Ancestors which is just an alternate deck for each of the decks in the game.
Oh, see, that might be interesting.
I don't think it's going to change your opinion of the game.
No, it's not going to change my opinion of the game.
But it will give it that extra variety and life that I like out of my games.
Yeah. This is one of those rare games, because, I mean, there's several games that, I don't care for. If, like, I came into the gaming space and this was on the table, I'd be like, what did I do to you? I would literally be like, did I do something wrong? I'm sorry. I apologize. Do I need to go get cake? But go out and try it yourself, folks. Don't just take my opinion.
I came into it because I had an opportunity. I had a really good trade come up for it. It honestly could have been used as a why did I play it for me in the first place. But again, I went into it with all these things known. Every single comment you just made about the game, entirely valid.
But
I just
you still
love
like
it.
the game. Yeah. I do not want my opinions to sway anybody to say, no, don't get it.
There are bad games out there.
Yes.
That I think can be universally looked at as like, this is not a great game for any variety of reasons.
Oh, yeah.
Most games, especially at this point in the industry, are just good. And it's worth having opinions from both sides of, hey, I didn't like it for this reason, or you know what, go try it out, just because there is simply so much out there. And Endless Winter does still have quite a following. Fantasia Games built their bones on this game.
Yeah, there's gonna be people that will love this game.
I don't know if you have anything else you could say that isn't just hitting it with a hammer.
Yeah, I think I spoke my mind.
One of the things that we wanted to kind of use the channel for is little micro reviews of stuff we've played, or maybe it's something we've only played a couple times. We don't want to give a full review. And that is going to be what this segment is. We're calling it Table, Shelf, and Trade, where we're not going to give a strict numerical score. It is just the idea of, would I want to put it on my shelf? Do I want to keep it? Do I own it? Do I have a reason to have it in my collection? Table being, hey, I'll play it. I don't need to own it for whatever reason. Maybe I wouldn't even ask for it, but if it's sitting there, I'll happily play it. Trade is, I don't want to play this. It could be for any variety of reason of, I don't like the game at all, or I have a game that I like better than this one, that type of stuff. We will do standalone reviews that are outside of our regular episodes, where we will do more in-depth conversation and rating. But the point of this is just, let's talk about a few more games and bounce them off each other. Maybe a game we haven't heard of or we haven't played together, that type of thing.
Yeah, I'll kick us off. I'm going to start back at 2016. Was brought to my friends group as a cheap and easy game, and I hate to be negative again, but it's one of those, I'm like, why was this made? Oof. So this is definitely a trade. The whole thing is, I do end up finding myself playing it on Board Game Arena because it's quick and it's easy, and I don't have to really think about doing it, and it's Bandito.
Oh, okay.
Premise of the game is that a robber is going to break out of jail, and you are playing cards to try to keep him in jail. You're trying to block him off with flashlights.
So he has tunneled underground, and you are playing tunnel cards to create a giant maze. And what's interesting about the game, it is teeny tiny little box.
It's a teeny tiny little box.
It's an oink-sized box.
Yeah.
That takes up an entire table.
It takes up the entire table because the cards are about 1 inch by 2 inches. The graphics are very, very simple, simplistic. It ends up being top deck the game. Like you have a hand of 3 cards. I think the only reason why I do play it on BGA is because I think it's decent as a solo game, because if you find yourself in a tight spot, you have to get rid of your hand and you draw a new hand, which you think enough ahead, you can actually force that to happen, and you might draw into what you need. But
I've played this extensively on BGA. I've played it on a table as well. This is also a strict trade for me. The win condition is that you have to have every tunnel closed off. And if by the time the deck runs out, even one tunnel has an opening on it,
he wins.
You've lost.
Yep.
I think Top Deck the game is actually kind of nice to call it, because it's Candyland. You don't partake in the game happens to you. And I know there's a sequel, Bandita, but it still uses that same framework that I have never wanted to go out and try it.
Yeah. I'll literally sit and play just because it's like, it's something that's quick, it's mouth-watering. I can win, I can lose. It doesn't do anything for me, though.
Yeah, and it's so easy on BGA.
Yep, because I don't have to shuffle. It's not actually taking up shelf space.
But the amount you have to scroll in the game, because that's what I mean. It is too big for what it is. It's automatic. I agree. It's a trade.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about a game I was very excited for, almost backed it on Kickstarter, ended up canceling my pledge, and then when I got a retail copy later, it is a 2023 game, Cosmoctopus.
Okay.
Strong credentials for me because it is from Henry Audubon. I love parks. There's a topic actually that we'll talk about in a future episode because of parks, because there's some interesting things on it, but it's a great game. I really liked what Henry Audubon did with it. I think the theme of Cosmoctopus is hilarious. You are doing some set collection and tableau building here where you are trying to summon the great inky one, and it's essentially a race to summon the Cosmoctopus himself. There's a couple of really funny little thematic rules, like when it is no longer your turn, you are supposed to turn the Cosmoctopus to face whoever's next, so they're getting stared at. Little fun stuff like that. It has that splendor feeling of you are building your tableau and getting your discounts for being able to play cards, being able to summon tentacles, that type of stuff. I have the retail box. It's almost identical to the Kickstarter from what I understand, just some component differences for the solo actually, and some like spot foiling. So I feel like the production is very good. It's $40, I think. Feels great for cost. The art on the game is very minimalistic, honestly.
It's almost retro.
Almost. It feels like it's trying for that sci-fi pulp, like 50s
vibe. Yeah,
vibe.
the 50s vibe.
End of the day, though, it just feels same game to game. That's a real death knell for me. The tiles that come out to actually do the action selection with the Great Inky one, 8 of them are the same. They're static every game, and the rotating tile, there's only like 3 or 4 of them in the box. And then even still, yeah, the layout can change, but if you're not using the standard 3x3 grid, honestly, you're just kind of extending the game at that point. I like the solo mode. The solo mode is hard. It's a good challenge, but again, there's just not a lot of variety there, and it just feels the same game to game for me. For me, this is a table. I am actually trading my copy away.
Oh, wow.
But if somebody said, hey, I want to play Cosmoctopus, great, let's do it. It's a light game. It's one that I could play with. I'm not going to put it in front of grandma, certainly.
Right.
But if somebody is newer into the hobby and they're like, I've played a few games and I really like this, like, I would play it again. I think there's certainly a reason for a lot of people to own it and why some people really are adoring it. Mm-hmm. For me, the variety from game to game isn't there, and the difficulty on the solo mode is actually a big negative for me. I'm not actually sure I've ever won the solo.
Wow. You and I played this. I love the theme. I think it's really cool. I like the whole idea of the 1950s feel in the artwork. The pieces are very, very nice. The cards have a great feel to them. I think it was made very, very well. There are better games out there. Sure. But I definitely feel like if there's a person who wants to get into the hobby and doesn't want to sit there and spend a lot of money, I could definitely put that in the suggestion box for them and say, please pick that up.
Especially if you just want kind of a goofy game. Like, it has great table presence, and somebody looking on the shelf, what is Cosmoctopus?
Yes. And I think that's the thing, is that looking at the box initially, you're just like, okay, what is this? And honestly, that's very important when you want to look at games. Why am I going to pick this up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your game number 2?
Yeah, game number 2. Actually, I picked this up at Gen Con last year. It was one of those, Gen Con every year is, oh boy, I hope you can get some of these things because, they're probably going to go fast. I was very lucky. I was able to pick up a copy of World Wonders by Arcane Wonder. It is not really an auction game. As you guys can hear, I'm pulling out that box. You're building a city, so it's a space management, tile placement, following all the little rules on how you're supposed to properly put out and display your city, because you're trying to build the best city. And the neat little feature is that all your major world wonders that we know of in this day and age are monuments that you can put into your city that give you points.
Somebody's going to be like, oh, this is just a different version of Seven Wonders. Very different. Games. Different wonders, different monuments.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're looking at like, I don't know, I already like Seven Wonders, totally different games.
Yeah, please, take that, because Seven Wonders is a great game. Seven Wonder Architects is a phenomenal game.
We vastly disagree on that.
Oh, I like that game.
I rated a 2.
Really?
Yeah, we'll talk about that in the future.
Yeah, I would rather play Architects than the actual.
I don't want to play any Seven Wonders.
But World Wonders, gosh, there's other games that are like it, but I think this does it well, that this is going to stay on my shelf.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, beyond just you keeping everything.
Yeah, so if I ever did a mass exodus, this would be in a bag ready
Okay.
for me to take with me.
Okay.
So maybe more, I should have, instead of shelf, I should have bag, because it's going to be in a bag and it's going to go with me.
It's going to travel places.
It's going to travel places. Not just because it's new, not just because it's shiny. It's actually because I really enjoy the game, because even though I lost, I still had a great time.
I like the action economy of the game.
Oh, yeah.
Because you are buying tiles in a market that is reminiscent of Castles of Mad King Ludwig.
Yes.
And none of the ideas here are particularly original.
No.
But it feels like Ark Nova in the sense of, even though it stole a bunch of stuff, the melange there is fun.
Yeah. So yes, there is a marketplace depending on how many players, depends on how large your market is. There's only 10 rounds.
And the game is both simultaneously quicker and longer than you expect it to be.
Yes.
Like, I felt like at the end of the game, I got a full fat game out of it. I did not feel like any of my time was wasted with the game. And I feel like it lasted a good length, too.
Yeah. Well, I think
which is also something that you cannot say for Endless Winter.
You cannot say that.
For only having 3 turns per round. Boy, those turns can be long.
Yeah, and what's really, really neat about this, the mechanic in this one is everybody has 7 coins. So on your turn, if you choose to buy the biggest building, it's going to take 5 coins. And then you immediately place stuff out. Well, while I'm placing stuff out, the next player can just start.
And if you're buying that 5 coin thing, when your limit, generally speaking, is 7, like, you are really shorting your round. So you better have a good reason for that tile.
Exactly. But there's like 5 different types of buildings, and you're building off of roads. And I think probably the mechanic that I enjoy the most is that as long as you meet the requirements, you can build a monument every single round.
Yeah.
It just takes up the rest of your money. So if all you have left is 1, it'll cost you 1 coin to build it.
Well, and so long as you haven't capped out your money by spending all 7 in earlier stuff, you can actually take a loan to still buy the monument.
Oh, yeah. Very much so.
For me, the game is a table. I enjoyed it. I thought a lot about it after we finished playing it. It's one that I would certainly want to try again. It's one that I think I would be curious to see the actual experience of the solo rules.
Well, it has a solo rule deck.
It does.
Automa deck. Starts off always. It's always first. You are always second. And it tells you at the top of the card which goes first, which it discards right away. And then you get to go. And then it gets rid of another piece. And then the bottom portion is, which of the 2 monuments does it get rid of?
I will say the 2 complaints that I have that really shove it into that table category. The first being, you are strictly at the mercy of the market. Like,
we did have that issue.
If the monuments that come up all need markets and all the market tiles are gone or they just haven't come up, that means things aren't going to change. That's a real problem. I also feel like if you make an error, which it is very easy to make little errors, they can be damning to your game. If you don't understand the way the roads work and then you don't get to the monument, it is so easy to mess up a little thing of like, oh, I needed this 1 column over.
Yeah.
That can be a real frustration.
Yeah.
Not enough to sink the game for me, but I'm not going to suggest it to other people. I will play if it's on the table, but I'm not going to go out of my way for it.
Just to kind of rebuttal on the monuments standpoint. Yeah, if you get stuck with the monuments, I don't necessarily think the monuments make or break the game. Because, great, if I don't have these monuments, I still have to put the right buildings down to make sure that my technology, my ceramics, and my food is going up to continue to make my population increase.
But the difference in our points were the monuments.
Yeah, but we had the same amount of monuments.
But my monuments were stronger than yours because I had a couple of 2-point ones.
I also had 2-point ones.
Okay. Oh, that's right, because I surrounded all my buildings.
Yes, you did. Right. See, you beat me in the board. You didn't beat me in the monuments.
And that just makes me feel a little more negative on it again, because that's what the game is built off of, and it's not incidental, but it can be.
It's also that tile placement is, where do you put your monuments? Because since you said, I didn't want to block my natural wonders or the natural elements that are on the board because I chose not to do that. I left buildings open, so then they didn't get circled. So you were able to circle the buildings. I mean, it was the choices that we both made. You chose to circle buildings. I chose to keep my natural elements. Yep. It ended up winning you the game.
Well, I still had 8 or 9 of my natural elements open too.
Yeah.
So point is, I think it's an interesting game. Yeah. It's a table for me.
Yeah. And it will definitely probably be in my bag and be back at your house next month.
All right. I am interested to see how player count affects it though.
Yeah, I think I will probably try the solo mode probably sometime next week.
I don't think I would want to play it at 5.
I don't think I would want to play it at 5 either.
I think 3 is...
I think your 3 might be your sweet spot.
Okay, so my second game for the segment is... This one's an interesting one for me. From Pandasaurus from 2020. Adam Hill and Clayton Hargrave were the designers on it. It is a game called Godspeed. The theme of Godspeed on its surface is phenomenal, where the tagline is just the space race was a lie. So you are colonizing an exoplanet that the space race was all to go to the moon is all just a show to get money to go fund this other exploration on this other planet. I mean, I think that's about as far as the theme goes. Like it works for what it's doing, but it is not a strong thematics to mechanisms tie. The game, though, is a tableau development, worker placement, auction game.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an auction.
So it plays over 10 rounds, and there are 4 phases in the 10 rounds. I mean, this is straight up a midweight Euro game.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, very much so.
Where the first thing that's going to happen in each round is an event card's going to flip, and you have to decide, are you going to send your worker to this? Because each player has 5 unique workers that have different numbers on them, but they are able to take different actions. And so essentially when you send your guy to it, you are saying, I am not going to take this action for the rest of the round. And if everybody sends their guy, then everybody gets a bonus. But if one person doesn't, then nobody gets the bonus, and whoever did not send now gets a penalty. Really interesting choice. Really, really interesting choice to define what comes next,
right?
Which is the bidding phase, where multiple cards come out and you are bidding on, maybe it's an extra worker, maybe it's an extra action, but it's also first player in the round. And so you're spending resources, and you have the option to spend your workers there as well. And then once you get through there, you go into the action round, where regardless of how many workers you have, you can take at most 2 actions. And so there's a really interesting balance as you're watching from the start of the round to the end of the round of what are my priorities right now. And then there's just a cleanup, pick up your guys and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. I fully transparently have designed a solo mode for. You can play it on Board Game Arena as part of the solo design contest from 2020. I ended up getting rid of it. And then I got it back. It was like 2 years later that I got it back, because that loop is super. I really, really love the flow of the game. One of my issues with the game, and it is something that I don't like in games, is when essentially all the points are just visible on the table. In Godspeed, what I realized is this isn't a game that you worry about your points. This is a race game. Mm-hmm. And so you are generating points from your race, but you are racing the other players. The more players there are, there's more interesting interactions. That high council phase at the start becomes significantly more interesting, because then you can try to negotiate and cajole the other people, like, hey, come on in, we could all use this extra coin this round. And once I kind of shifted that expectation of it's the same pool of points to this is a race game, really love this game. It also has some of the best components I've ever played in a game.
Oh my god, those components are amazing. I've not played a game that did as well as this does, in all honesty. I think this is a great game. This would be a shelf. If you didn't own it, I would definitely... Now having played it, I would go out and look for it.
This is a shelf for me. It was a shelf for me the first time, and then I got silly with it, and I traded it away, and I regretted it for 2 years, and then I went back and I got it. It's a shelf for me.
Yeah. The components are amazing. The cards are very, very nice. I like, again, since I am the theme person, I think the theme is done very, very well. The fact that you have all the different factions, because it gives a little bit of asymmetry, and not enough that it makes it feel like there's definitely not a clear winner or one that's better.
It's nice that it gives you that slightly adjusted starting point, so you're not all doing the same thing at the same time.
Right.
And there are definitely, unlike what we talked about in Endless Winter, you don't have to do everything.
No.
You can focus on a few of the milestone categories and just rush and go for those in that race, and you will still do just fine. I
inadvertently rushed my technology.
Yep.
And that it helped me get the win, because the beautiful thing is once you get one of your categories all the way to 12, the moment that you trigger it again, you get a different resource out of it.
Yep.
And because I was able to pull that off so much,
you got so many resources.
I got so many resources out of it, because I wasn't even producing the green crystals. I never even did those.
And what's interesting is, even though you were producing as much as you were, you were only a turn ahead of me, an action ahead of me most of the time for getting those 2 milestones.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I believe this was Hargrave's first design. And I think Adam Hill only had like 2 or 3 credits. I could be off on this. It's been a while since I looked them up. Point is, like, this is a fairly junior design team that I would love to see more stuff out of them.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it. I thought, again, the theming is fantastic because it is that space race. So you're thinking of the 60s and when they were trying to get to the moon and
the art vibe of like that 60s sci-fi style. They did a really great job. And the other thing I will absolutely credit the game for, phenomenal player aids, incredibly good rule book. Super easy to teach the game, super easy to learn the game. It absolutely baffles me that Pandasaurus just clearanced this thing, that it just hit and went away, because it deserves much more. So unfortunately, we're sitting here really speaking highly of the game. It actually can be pretty hard to find at this point.
Yeah, if you do find it, grab it, please.
Yeah.
Buy more games.
For each episode, we're going to have a rotating category of topics that we want to talk about. And we've kind of preset some of these. We're just calling this the archives. We mentioned earlier in this episode that there are hundreds, thousands of great games out there, which means that games are getting overlooked, they're getting missed, they're getting forgotten. And so the archives is specifically to talk about one game that we want to highlight from at least 5 years ago, because 5 years in this industry is crazy how much stuff can be gone.
And the fact that there are games that are in the past that still kind of can hold up here and deserve its table space.
Absolutely. So I wanted to focus on one of my absolute favorite games. Was lucky enough to get a second edition. It had a spin-off that had a lot of production issues. It started with Fantasy Flight. It ended with Z-Man, and it's been out of print too long. It is Kingsburg second edition. I prefer the second edition. I actually like its art style more. I like the fact the expansion is baked into the box. I really like the dice. You'll see some divisiveness on graphical presentation between first and second. Some people like first, some people like second. I prefer second. The game is the same, though. The only difference in first and second edition is second edition, other than some of those graphical changes, has the expansion in the box. That's it.
Oh, beautiful.
The expansion, which I believe is just called the expansion. Kingsburg, on its face, is a bland beige and gray Euro game. I'll admit it. But it is a really fascinating dice worker placement and tableau building, because each player is going to have 3-ish dice, depending on some other rewards through the round, where you are going to roll your dice, and then you are going to decide how you're going to allocate those dice. You can choose to spend them one at a time, which means you're going to get low rewards, but you're going to get more rewards because you've gone to more spaces. Or you could, if you roll 3 6s, you could go for the 18 spot and you can take the king's rewards. And the dice placement then feeds the tableau development of, you have a giant building sheet in front of you, and you spend those resources to build the buildings, which then give you special abilities, because at the end of each round, you have to fight off the invading hordes.
Yeah.
And they could be goblins, orcs, whatever. It is a strong medieval high fantasy game. And you do that for 5 rounds, and the game's over. The expansion is great because it can give some asymmetry on your player boards. You can play alternate player boards. You can switch out the rewards on particular dice placement locations. There's an event deck that can come out that really changes the way things work up. So it's a great base game. It is, I mean, it says 90 to 120 minutes on the box. That's a strict lie. I don't know that I've ever had a game go more than an hour.
I mean, when we played it, it was my first time playing it. I don't even think we were at 75 minutes by the time we were done, and that included Teach.
Yeah, because Teach is super fast.
Yeah.
It's just a great game, and it had a really strong initial reception. And then I believe it's called Kingsport Festival, they did a Cthulhu version of it. And the board is a mess. It's way too dark. You can't read it. It kind of just killed the love for the game. And there is a reprint from Z-Man with the second edition that everything in that box is like $40. It was great. And then it just vanished. And it's a real shame, because if you like worker placement, if you like that dice manipulation, because there are a lot of ways to manipulate your dice, if you like tableau development and you like it in a quick package, and it plays 5 people, and really the length of the game doesn't change too much based on player count, because your decisions, I mean, part of them are predefined by what you've rolled, but part of it is, okay, I needed the 14. Scott took the 14 from me. How am I going to make my dice do other things? It's really, really a game I adore.
Yeah, it was a fun play. It's like you can also have certain things that allow you to be able to peek at the deck to know who's coming, so that you know exactly how much power to put into it, and then choosing what to build into your city gave you different powers, allowed you to do different things. And you and I had a lot of the same things in our cities, and then we each went 2 different directions on what we were building. I know I won, but I don't think I won by much.
It was tight. It was like 3 points.
Yeah. And it was literally just, I think it was just because I had something more than you, and I was, and that literally that was it. And it was so
because
nice.
I gambled and I missed on the 5th raid, and so I lost a couple points on the raid.
Yep, and I was covered. You weren't. Yeah, no, it was a fun game. If you guys can find it, I would also suggest it, because it's nice.
I mean, it's aggressively beige.
It's aggressively beige, but like also I would say there's not a ton of dice manipulation games out there, so it is a mechanic that doesn't get used a ton.
Yeah, there was a period where you had like Dice City and what was the AEG one? Dice Town? No, Dice City was the AEG one.
Yes,
Dice Town was the other one.
Yes.
And this, like, they all came out fairly close to each other, but beyond that, like, there's not a lot.
No, and I think I enjoyed the mechanic of this one. So
cool.
Yeah.
What do you want to dig the bones up of?
Yeah, I'm actually going back because you got to start at your base game.
Yeah, I think, and I do think the original Kingsburg was 2012, and I think second edition was 17.
Yeah, so this one goes back to 2016. One of the first time I've heard of this company. I don't know if it's their first game or not. Going back to Plaid Hat Games with Dead of Winter: The Long Night.
That was not their first game.
That was not their first game. Okay, what was their first game?
I believe it was Summoner Wars.
Oh, that's right. They're still working on stuff with that. Yeah. But Dead of Winter is their first Crossroads game that they did.
I did a playtest session of a prototype because the designer is from Toledo, Ohio.
Really?
That was when Plaid Hat was still located in Findlay.
Okay. Funny enough, I've been to Findlay. Actually, I think that's where my friend's family is from. Anyway.
A lot of family there.
Yeah. Dead of Winter came out, once like The Walking Dead was really starting to become super popular. It's one of those fun games where you can have a trader if you want to. You don't have to. But it's resource management, trying to keep your team alive. I still love it.
The crossroads system in it was very cool.
Yeah, because the whole thing is dependent on who was available. You've got, that event might trigger to that person. If not, it's to the current player. And you're just exploring around and trying to survive. And, you might get bit. You bite your friend, and you might lose almost your entire team. It was fun. It's just a fun game. When I sat there, was looking at our old games and going off of my list, I was just like, something I haven't talked about. And I was like, what would I want to play again and why? And Dead of Night is one of those. And I've got most of the expansions. I think I'm only missing one.
And you want to talk about a game that was everywhere and then all of a sudden nowhere. Like, that game dropped off the face of the earth in the past few years.
Yeah, it's 2 to 5 players. You're fighting survivors, and each of the survivors have different powers. Depending on where you're going, each location has different decks.
The game can run a little long.
It can run a little long,
but with the right group, that doesn't matter because you're having fun.
Yeah.
The only like just strong thing about Dead of Winter, like, is the personal objectives that make you look like you're being a traitor when you're just like, I need to collect water bottles. Like, I'm sorry, I need water bottles to win the game, even though it's a cooperative game.
Right.
That's a strong call. Plaid Hat, that was really when they were striking iron a lot.
Oh, yeah.
But I remember when that came out, like, it was everywhere. And you're talking about the second one, because the first one came out in 2013?
Possibly.
Something like that. And then they didn't do the Crossroads system again until
There was a
Gen 13.
Gen 13, which I haven't played it.
It did not get good reviews.
Really, that's a shame. I think they're getting ready to release another Gen Crossroads game soon.
They just did another one. Top of my head, I don't remember what it is,
Right.
but they did do some more. But that was, yeah, I believe Summoner Wars was their first thing, because Colby Dausch, who founded Plaid Hat, was one of the major designers with Rob Daviau on HeroScape.
Okay.
And so that turned into a whole bunch of stuff, and then that went to Summoner Wars. And then that was right around the time they also had the BioShock Infinite game. Like, they had just a string of games that were really good, and BioShock was underrated for what it was. Yeah, they're still a very strong company.
I'm looking at their list. I'm like, yep, I've played that one. Yeah. There's
not all games I love, but games that I can respect the designs.
Yeah, very much so. But yeah, no, if you dig zombies and the possible traitor element, go for it. It's a fun one. And even if you're the traitor and you get ousted, you're still not out of the game.
Yeah.
That's what's beautiful.
It really is. If you want the Walking Dead experience in a game that's actually good, because most Walking Dead games are not good.
No, they're not.
It's still a game that is absolutely worth playing. Like I said, it is just wild to me that game just vanished.
Yeah. So yeah, did a winner. My old timey game.
Board All the Time does have some socials on there. We are developing the Discord that should hopefully be launched in the next few episodes. We'll talk about that. You can always reach out to us at boardallthetimegaming@gmail.com. Eventually, we'll do the website, we'll do all the stuff, but we just want to get our feet under us at first. If you do want to reach out to us, that's the way to do it.
This podcast is locally produced and operated under the Theater Geeks Entertainment LLC. Yay. And we are also, not speaking of that, we're also sponsored. We actually have two sponsors. Our first sponsor is Robin's Nerd Supplies. It is a supplier for all your dice and gaming accessory needs. They were founded in 2018 out of Colorado. So go to robinsnerdsupplies.com and enter Theater Geeks in your checkout to get 10% off of your order. And then, of course, our friends here in South Bend, Eco Owl Press, they are a locally owned union member printing company that is celebrating 10 years in the business. Their aim is to fulfill your printing needs while remaining green for our planet, and you can check them out at ecoowlpress.com.
Well, with that, Scott, I'm bored of you.
Oh, you don't have to tell me twice.
Let's go play some games.
Let's get done.